Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to the Everyday Watch channel. My name is Torin, and for this video we're going to be discussing the newly released Zelos Mako version 3. This time it's in full titanium. So this is the watch in my hand, and I gotta say, with different lighting conditions, the dial on this one really pops. Now I will be giving you a quick review of this timepiece, and oh yeah, after the review is over, stick around because I will be giving away this watch to one viewer absolutely free. Let's get started. First things first guys, I do want to be fully transparent in that I contacted the owner of Zelos, Alshin, and request that he send in a watch to be reviewed and then also to be part of a giveaway that coincides with my YouTube channel surpassing the 5,000 subscriber milestone. Now, if you're not familiar with the watch company Zelos, they started off offering very affordable micro-brand divers that had a very good spec sheet and some original designs, and I think they caught on quite quickly. And over the past few years, Zelos has released a number of different models that spread not only across dive watches, but other sports watches as well. And even recently, they've entered into some high horology pieces with, like, for example, their Mirage line. Now, I have reviewed a Zelos Mako version 3 in the past in stainless steel, but of course, the one we're going to be taking a look at today is in titanium. Now, these watches do tend to sell out quite quickly. I think the retail on this guy is about $449 US, and it does have an impressive spec sheet. But why don't we flip the camera around now, and you guys can actually see this watch up close for the review portion of the video. So now you can see we got the Mako version 3 titanium in the studio. Again, huge thanks for Zelos for sending in this watch for free to be reviewed and subsequently given away. So the specific model of Mako 3 that I have in front of me is known as the Vintage Black because it does have a black fume dial with gilt markers on the hour markings, the handset, and the bezel insert as well. But there are different color options available. Please check out the Zelos website if you're interested in different colorways. That said, all the watches have similar case dimensions, very compact 40 millimeters across the case here. If I flip the watch to the side, the lug-to-lug dimension between my thumbs is 46 millimeters, although the way they did the end lengths of the bracelet, it does extend slightly past the lugs. Now the case height is 14 millimeters, but 2.5 millimeters of that height actually comes from this boxed and highly domed sapphire crystal. And if you look on the case back, there's also a very nice engraving of a Mako shark. Now, some other reviewers were quick to jump on the fact that the way they dome this crystal does lend it to a lot of reflections, but I do actually like how the gilt indices reflect and play with the light. But this watch is kind of hard to photograph or capture on video on certain angles, which is actually a bit of a shame because the dial itself has this gorgeous texture to it, and you can see how the fume pattern just propagates out from the center, where it's very light, almost a brown color, and then it becomes a darker gradient and very black at the very periphery of the dial. Now for the hour markers, I like that Zelos applied them, and you can see that they're almost like Mako shark teeth at the 12 o'clock position, as well as for the 3 and 9 o'clock to give you some more orientation. Now at the 6 o'clock you have a truncated hour marker where there is a date cutout, which I find is useful and helps keep the symmetry of the dial quite well. And aside from that, the only other features of the dial are the Zelos logo applied just below the 12, and then it does say it's a 300-meter diver, as well as automatic, just above the date cutout near the 6 o'clock position. Now you do also have a very subtle running minutes track or chapter ring that's raised slightly above the dial itself and with white printing. And then just past that, you do have a titanium bezel with a ceramic insert. So the bezel itself is 120 click unidirectional. You can see it's a coin edge style bezel, and the grip on it's actually quite nice. Turning it is extremely audible and very clicky, with just the slightest amount of backplay that is there. Now, one of the hallmark features for Zelos dive watches is their loom, and this watch is no exception. All of the applied hour markers, the hand stack, and even the ceramic bezel insert is loomed up very well. Most of it is treated with an X or C3 superluminova formulation, with the exception of the very tip of a seconds hand, and very subtly on the chapter ring you have blue BGW9 applied. Now, given the automatic printing above the date cutout at the 6, you might wonder, well, what's powering this watch? So inside the case is a Miyota 9015 movement. That's a high beat Miyota movement that ticks away at 28,800 vibrations per hour. It has 24 joules, about a 42-hour power reserve, and if you unscrew and manipulate the crown, you can manually wind this movement, and you can even hack it or stop the seconds hand. Now, speaking of the crown, Zelos does actually loom the side of the crown with their Zelos logo there. And I actually like the way they kind of beveled out the case on the side here, because it kind of acts like sheer crown guards, in the sense that some of the crown is more sunken into the case, and it does prevent it from being damaged. Now, I think one of the main selling points about this watch, or kind of the upgrade from previous iterations of the Mako, is that this case and bracelet are made of titanium, which, given the properties, does make this watch lighter. And I'm surprised how good the finishing is, like the beveling on the case and bracelet, considering that titanium is harder to finish. Additionally, titanium can actually be a little bit more prone to scratches, or they show up a little bit easier, but Zelos took it a step further and they actually applied a scratch-resistant coating to the case and bracelet to make it scratch-resistant up to 1200 Vickers. That's about 4 times harder than normal 316L stainless steel, which is really cool to see. So the bracelet itself is it's 20 millimeters between the lugs, and then it does have a bit of a taper down to about 18 before you get to the Zelos clasp. The clasp is nicely beveled. It has a twin trigger releasing mechanism, and you can see that the swing arm section here, very nicely milled out. And you might see that there are no micro adjustment holes drilled into the clasp, but they do have a push button extender where you can get incremental adjustment on the fly, which is a nice feature to have. I think this specific clasp with even the 2-post closing mechanism here was first introduced on Christopher Ward watches, and then Zelos started adopting it. And I can't really complain because it's very comfortable and nice to have extra adjustments. Now, looking at the side of the bracelet, if you want to size the individual links, you're going to need a very fine slot screwdriver to unscrew the individual threads holding the links together. And you can see that the links themselves are nicely vented and spaced out, so it's not going to pull your hair. So why don't I throw this guy on the wrist for you. Currently I'm wearing my Grand Seiko SBGN 003, but let's throw on the Mako to see how it looks. Alright, I did not size the bracelet to fit my wrist specifically, but this gives you an idea of how it would look on my wrist, which is 19 centimeters in circumference, or 7.5 inches if you're going imperial. And with a 40 millimeter dive watch, I think that's a sweet spot for a lot of people who want a robust sports watch on the wrist. And even if you have a wrist that's much smaller than this, I'm pretty sure you could pull this off no problem. Now, just while I had this watch on the wrist too, I wanted to mention that the properties of titanium does make this watch a little lighter than you would get on a standard full stainless steel dive watch. This watch, with all the links in it, weighs in at about 132 grams, which isn't overly light, surprisingly. You still get a bit of wrist presence with it, but I think for long-term wear and overall comfort, this is a very good weight to have, especially for having a dive watch on bracelet. Now, in terms of subtle improvements, I do want to mention something that I haven't pointed out previously, and that is that this watch actually has quick release spring bars for the bracelet. Some people really like the convenience of this. Personally, I don't really like it because if anything actually happens to the nubs on the quick release bars, then it's really cumbersome to remove the bracelet if you need to. But that's actually more of a personal preference, so it's not really a huge con. And then the only other noteworthy improvement I'd like to see, and again, it has been mentioned by other reviewers, is just to do a better job with the domed sapphire crystal with an anti-reflective treatment. Personally, I'd like to see them do away with a dome crystal altogether and just provide a flat sapphire crystal that would reduce the overall height of the watch and give you better viewing angles, in my personal opinion. But other than that, guys, I think you're getting a very well-spec'd watch for the asking price of $449. And the watch does have a lot of comfort on wrist, given that it is a titanium, and I really appreciate that scratch-resistant coating and the overall finishing that Zelos was able to achieve, given that this watch is done fully in titanium. Alright, so let's go over some contest rules, and it's quite straightforward. If you're interested in winning this watch, I'm going to be doing a live stream in a couple weeks' time, and I'll be doing a bit of a Q&A. So just, if you have any questions, drop a comment in the description of this specific video, and then be present at the live stream Q&A section. And what will happen at the live stream is that I'm going to use a random comment generator specifically for this video, and one winner will randomly be selected, and they will need to be present at the live stream to claim their prize. If they don't claim it within a few minutes on the live stream, I'll move on to the next eligible contestant. But if you have any more questions about the contest rules, please look in the description of this specific video. And I do recommend you be subscribed so you will get notification on when the live stream will specifically be. But I'm forecasting it'll be within about 2 weeks' time from the airing of this video. So that's it, guys. Thanks for sticking around to the end. If you do like this content, please do consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. And as always, I'll catch you guys in the next video.